make me bleed into the depths of your soul eternally. Taste my blood with you, it runs.
My name is Quetzal Guerrero. I'm a singer-songwriter.
Take away my flesh and bone, draw me out of wood and stone, so I ain't gotta feel all the pain that just won't leave me alone. Take away my flesh and bone, draw me out of wood and stone, so I ain't gotta feel all the pain that just won't leave me alone. Yeah, can't you see, giving every part of my desire.
Born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. My mother's from northeastern Brazil, from a city called Recife. My father's fifth generation, born and raised in Arizona. But music has been my life, part of my life, big part of my life since I can remember. I was pretty much born into it. Both my parents were musicians, and I was raised playing music, performing, practicing every day. And, I play violin, I play guitar, and I sing as well. And I was 4 years old when I started playing violin, and it's been over 20 years now that I've been playing. And the violin has been something that I've been learning how to integrate better in my form of songwriting. I used to write a lot of my songs on guitar and sing, but now I've really been trying to develop my own style and form of playing violin and singing together as something that goes hand in hand. For the most part, yes, I write the majority of my own songs. I mean, I do a lot of collaborations. I strive to make my music as unique and as insightful as possible. What defines my style, I feel like, because I come from a multi-ethnic, multicultural background, so much music has influenced me throughout the years, from Latin music, Brazilian music, Caribbean music, tons of American music. What attracts me so much to what I do and what makes me keep going and doing more and pushing myself even further is just the incredible amount of joy, self-satisfaction, purpose, and completion that I feel when I am performing, when I am recording. You know, the ability to inspire people, to incite movement, to incite dancing, to incite emotions, inspiration, through music, through vibrations, is something it's magical. You know, it's unsurpassed.
Run, 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 run away.
Awesome. We are here virtually with Q-Violin. I am ecstatic and thrilled to be able to speak with you. And I know my students are also excited for this time. So thank you for being here. I first want to thank also the students and families, SCPA community who are here this evening with us for this conversation that we're about to have in this sharing of art and music and culture with Q. So Q, I have a quick question. Why Q-Violin? Can you please expand on the meaning of your name and where that came from?
Yes. All right. Hello, everybody out there. Thank you for tuning in. So my name is Quetzal Guerrero. Quetzal is the name of a bird from Central America. It's actually the national bird of Guatemala. It was a sacred bird of all the indigenous peoples of Mesoamerica, from the Mayans to the Aztecs to the Toltecs to a lot of the different tribes that were around since before Europeans came. And the Quetzal is spelled with Q. So a lot of people call me Q for short. And because I've been known to play violin, right? That's my main instrument, the violin. My very first website was QVLN.com because it's easy for people to remember. It's easy for people to, they know the spelling right away. And so I started using QVLN after my name, because my name is Quetzal Guerrero. It's a little difficult for some people to speak or pronounce, even remember, or even spell. So I said, I need to simplify just my brand so that people can remember it a little bit more and it'll be easier to share. So that's violin right there.
That's great. It's unique. I love it. And one I really love about the video that the audience just saw was about your childhood. It's about your journey of where it all began. how you were just surrounded really from birth with the power and the beauty of music. You were already traveling all over the world at such a very young age, experiencing all kinds of cultures, experiencing different languages, different religions, different ways and systems of learning. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that was at such a young age, traveling to different places of the world?
Yes, I mean, having the opportunity to travel at a young age really gave me a lot of perspective growing up. You know, my very first experience in school was actually going to kindergarten in Japan. You know,
Wow.
my father, both of my parents are artists, and my father is a sculptor, mask maker, painter. So he got a grant to, I don't know if you can hear that beeping, sorry. But he got a grant to live and work and study in Japan when I was 5 years old. So we got a chance to move to Japan, and as he was studying, I was going to school. So my very first school experience was abroad in Japan, in a place like Japan. So it really shaped kind of my perspective and my experience in the whole educational system as my first impression, right? So when I came back to the States and started going to school like first grade or so, it already was different than what I was used to. I was used to what Japan had, and then come back to the States, it just seemed very different in so many ways. But it kept me open. It kept me open-minded. It kept me kind of grounded, I think, in the sense that I had a better perspective of what's beyond just my local neighborhood school, which most kids, that's all they have, right? The only school experience they have is a very one school that they go to. If they get a chance to move around and they get a chance to make new friends, you know, maybe if they're in another country, you have to speak another language. You know, you eat different foods. There's different protocols. There's different ways of educating. So it really kind of opened up my palette too, as far as what kind of music I like. You know, growing up as a kid, I didn't just listen to what was popular in the States. I was listening to music from all over the world because I was able to go to these places and experience the culture, experience the people and the music, and it helped to kind of shape my taste of what I liked and what I enjoyed.
Right. Now, while in Japan, I mean, we see also that you're classically trained, and we were speaking previous in another conversation about living in Japan at the age of 5 and actually attending a Suzuki Institute.
Yes. So I began studying classical music at the age of 4, learning the Suzuki method, right, which a lot of people are very familiar with. It's worldwide. And the concept behind the Suzuki method is the same concept behind the mother tongue, right? As children, as babies, we learn how to speak before we learn how to read and write, correct? So before you even get to school, you're already speaking. And then when you're at school, you start learning how to read and write, and you start learning how to apply those words and what you say to what is written and what can be read. So that's the same concept in the Suzuki method. Suzuki came up with that method of teaching kids how to play first by listening and by repeating and learning and memorizing first. And then later on, as child was progressing and developing, they would learn how to read and or write music, right? So what that does is allows kids to learn instruments at a much earlier age, at a much younger age. And when I say much younger, I mean like babies, like toddlers. Okay, so to put this in perspective, I was in Japan and I was 5 years old playing violin. Now a lot of people think that's really young, right? People are like, wow, you were so young. I started when I was 4. Okay, so when I went to Suzuki Institute in Japan, I was the oldest in my class. Okay, I specifically remember. Now I was only 5 years old, but I remember this. They put me in the back of the class because I was the tallest and I could see over all of the other kids' heads because they were still wearing diapers. They were like 2 and 3 years old. That's how young they start.
Wow.
Over there.
Already being humbled at the age of 5.
Yeah. So I already felt like the slow kid even before, you know, I just started, and I was already like, wow, I'm like the biggest kid here. What's going on, you know?
That's amazing. That is fantastic. Now, some of your, you did talk about being exposed to so many different types of music all over the world. What were some of your influences then early in your childhood as you started to develop who you were as a player?
Well, my parents are both of Latino descent, or you know, of this hemisphere. So my mother's from Brazil, and she's a classically trained pianist from the age of 5. So she understood the value in learning classical music, but she also played Brazilian guitar. She also played accordion. She also played vibraphone. So she was playing sambas and bossa novas and all kinds of Brazilian music like forró growing up. And go to Brazil, getting the chance to go to Brazil, study there as well, but also be immersed in the culture and see all the amazing music and dance styles that were there, really turned me on to all of the possibilities of music. And then obviously my dad is a Mexican American, or Chicano, and he grew up here in Arizona, but he also he spent a lot of time in the Bay Area in California. So he was a big fan of all the American greats, namely Jimi Hendrix, or Eric Clapton, or Carlos Santana, right? And Bob Marley. And then all of the music from the Caribbean, rhythms like reggae, like Bob Marley, or like cumbia, which is big, or mariachi music. There was a youth mariachi program when I was growing up as a kid that I also got to attend. So that was all music that I felt like I could identify with culturally, because that's where my family and my family heritage is from, all those regions, right? So I grew up listening to those sounds, those music, those rhythms, as well as listening to music from my era, which was hip hop, you know, trap, you know, electronic music, jungle, drum and bass, all that kind of stuff. So by the time I was in high school, the hip hop era was really big. You know, all my friends would break dancing and DJing and writing graffiti and stuff. So I was really into that as well. Yeah. And that really influenced my flavors, and what I gravitated towards was all those different styles.
Wow, that's powerful. You know, speaking of Jimi Hendrix, one of the very first videos I actually discovered of yours was your Jimi Hendrix Voodoo Child video, and my students thought it was just brilliant. We loved the fact that you're in New York and just going through the subway and going through all these different places and energy, and playing on that electric violin. Of course, that was impressive to my students. Let's take a look at some of this, of what you did and some of the improv you put in over Jimmy's famous tune.
Chop it down to the edge of my hand. Well, I stand up next to a mountain, and I chop it down with the edge of my hand. Well, I pick up all the pieces and make an island. Might even raise up to the sand.
Love that one. Can you tell us maybe a little bit more about why you decided to do it in New York City?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting story about how this video came about. So I was on tour at the time with a band that I used to play with called Metalachi, which is a heavy metal mariachi band. All right.
wow.
If any of you guys are fans of heavy metal music, you can go on YouTube right now and you can type in Metalachi. That's metal mariachi put together. And you might see a couple videos of me wearing some really crazy clothes and a wig playing a black spike studded violin. And it was a lot of fun. So we were doing an East Coast tour at the time, and we were in New York, and we had a day off in New York. And one of my buddies, who happens to be a filmmaker, who lives in New York. So I hit him up. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna be in town. You know, let's hang out. Let's get together. And he's like, let's shoot a video, man. I got this new camera. Let's do some blah blah blah. And I'm like, it's freezing outside. It was. There's a reason why I was all covered up, like with the hoodie, and because it was gloves. Like it was literally like 20 something degrees outside. It was so cold, but I didn't want to pass up the opportunity of getting to do a free impromptu video with one of my buddies who's a really talented filmmaker, right? So we got together, we met up at the subway, and he pulled out his camera and he's like, yeah, man, just do your thing. And I was like, oh, okay, like, how are we gonna do this? And I hadn't even recorded that song yet, but I had been practicing it and kind of developing what it would sound like if I was to do my version of it.
Yeah.
So if you can see in the video, I'm wearing my little ear pods, and what that was doing is I was playing to a metronome. So
wow.
The tempo was a specific tempo because I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to record the song at the specific tempo so that I can cut the video to the audio after the fact, and they'll be able to match up. Because if not, it'll be a different speed. My voice speed will be different. There's all these like factors that you have to take into account when you're trying to record a performance video, right? Like if I'm lip singing and what I'm singing in the record is different than what I'm singing live, it's not going to match up, right? And it was quite a challenge because I had a metronome and I started playing my idea of what I thought the song was going to sound like. And then we literally just jumped on the train, shot inside the train, shot outside the train. We went to the park and shooting all over it. And then we went to Times Square. There's a piece of the video there where I'm in Times Square and there's the guy, the Lady Liberty with the US flag. So there's all this cool imagery that we were able to capture. And then as you know, we spent the whole day pretty much shooting as much stuff that we could that was going to look interesting that we could. Cause there's a part where I'm walking over the Brooklyn Bridge. So it was really fun because while I'm shooting this video, I'm also getting to know New York, right? I'm on the train, I'm in Times Square, I'm on Brooklyn Bridge, I'm on all these like cool areas that probably wouldn't normally be at. If you're on tour, you're usually just going to the venue and performing, and then you're traveling and you're off to the next place. So I always try to take time to like explore a lot of these new places or cities that I haven't been to, or if I have, I want to go see new parts of it, you know? So we spent that whole day shooting it. He sent me the footage, and then I was able to record the song after the fact, right? And so the song, the concept, the style of the song, you can hear there's a lot of conga drums.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of like a trap beat. So the idea was I wanted to make it like an Afro-Colombian trap beat with the violin on top. So I wanted to incorporate my own musical influences like cumbia and like hip hop and trap,
right,
and cover that in a way where it would still pay homage to Jimi Hendrix, but it's something that I felt like stylistically and culturally represented me.
Right.
You know?
No,
So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it looked like a lot of fun. And speaking of the styles to represent yourself, something that in your playing or in the videos and the music that I've listened to so far is that there's always something that's like ancient about it, even though you're new flavors and colors, you have hip hop and you're adding the cumbias, but underneath it there's like an undercurrent, almost like an ostinato to use term, students, that serves as like the heartbeat or like the foundation of where all your music is going. Am I onto something here? Because that's how I feel when I listen to your music. Like you're paying homage to those that came before you, to your ancestors, and keeping that in what we do now is it's important. And I feel like this.
I think it's definitely important, and that's a very true statement and you know, detail that you're able to point out, is that all of my abilities of being able to play is based on my studies of past composers and artists, right? So every musician and artist today exists on the substructure of all the past musicians and composers, right? Just like the violin is an evolution of, you know, hundreds if not thousands of years of instruments that morphed and changed shapes and that were constantly improving and refining until it got to the place where it is today, which is at this epic state. You know, it's at this peak state where the old violin makers from back in the day were able to craft their instrument in such a way that they could reach a perfect tone, perfect volume, perfect ease on which to play. But it took many, many generations for that to come to fruition. So that's how I look at my music too. You know, all the scales that I play or the stuff that I riff off of, I'm only able to do that because I studied Vivaldi and Paganini and, you know, whoever else, you know, Bach. That gave me the abilities and the technique to then be able to find my own voice within. And also a lot of these rhythms, right? They're all based off of rhythms of past, from before. Everybody's kind of like tapping into the source, which is all of our collective ancestry as humanity. And they're taking something and reinventing it or re-expressing it and making it their own. And then that's something that's new or unique or signature to the artist, right? So that's very much the way I think about conceptually when I create songs or rhythms or whatnot.
Yeah, that's pretty deep. I love that. We're gonna segue to Bones. That's a good segue, actually.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue.
Perfect. Speaking of homage to our ancestors and recognizing our ancestors and the power of that's still running through us, that drives us where we are. There's a video that you put out, and you can probably describe a lot better than I can, but what struck me about it was the imagery. And I didn't know exactly where it was all going, but then we spoke about it, and I would love to share this with our guest here so we can talk a little bit more about how you use your music as a way to bring awareness to pay homage to your ancestors.
Yeah, the video Bones is very much that. It's a paying respect to our ancestors, but it's also talking about the whole cycle of life and death that all of us are a part of right now, right? If you're young, you were born more recently than your parents, but and even more than your grandparents. And then, you know, I've had the great fortune of being with my grandfather when he passed. You know, he was very old. He lived a long life. He lived a full quality life. So I got to be with him at the end and to bear witness to that transition. And what was amazing about it is that I didn't feel sad. I felt like I got to witness beauty, the circle of life. Like I got to witness somebody who brought me into life through his son, and then now I got to live and learn from him, and then I got to be with him in comfort as he transitioned to death. So in this culture today, we don't really talk a lot about death. We're always talking about how cool it is to be young and how everything needs to be fresh and new. But part of being alive is that at some point we're gonna get there, you know. And I grew up with celebrating the tradition of Dia de los Muertos, also known as Miquisli, which is a pre-Columbian, pre-European festival that is celebrated around this time of year by the Aztecs, by the peoples of Mesoamerica. And what they do is that they go to the cemeteries and they decorate the graves ancestors, of their of their fallen families, and they put out their favorite foods, they put out pictures, and they dress themselves, and they celebrate these people's lives and legacies as a way of showing gratitude for what they've given to them, life. You see what I mean? So this song is very much in that vein. I mean, a lot of the kids out there, I'm sure you've seen the movie Coco, right? Coco is great because it gives you a very amazing visual experience of what Dia de los Muertos is about, right? So the theme of this song, Bones, is addressing the end of the life cycle, but it also brings in new life, right? And talking about who our ancestors are and how they guide us, they teach us, they show us the path that that we need to be grateful for, that we need to practice gratitude, because a lot of our ancestors traveled thousands of miles, sacrificed so much, gave their lives, worked everything, worked their hands to the bones, or, dedicated so much just to give us the life that we have now, which a lot of times is beautiful, which is comfortable, which is full of culture, which is full of food, which is full of music, and which is full of family. You know what I mean? So this is what this song is talking about. And it features some of the artwork that my father does. So in recording this video, you see a lot of the masks that we're wearing. Those are masks that my dad actually made and created. So that's also a way of paying homage to my most recent ancestor, who happens to be my father.
That's beautiful. Yeah, let's see it.
The ancestors know all that I carry in my bones. And after this life of strife, I'm gonna return home. And when it's all over, the weight is off my shoulders. It's just my bones that bleed. Let my soul free. When I conquer pain, nothing stays the same. All that remains is my bones. Yeah. When I conquer pain, nothing stays the same. All that remains is my bones. Yeah.
Awesome. Yes, we are back. Now, I have a question about the dancer. Who is the dancer? She is fantastic.
Yeah, her name is Kara Mack. She's actually an amazing singer as well. She's sang in some of my previous works. And she's from Los Angeles. She's based out of Los Angeles. And she is a master African diasporic dancer. And she's an incredible singer. And she's part of the whole Afro diasporic community that I've been working really closely with in Los Angeles. There's a big African drumming and dance scene there. There's a big capoeira, Afro-Brazilian music and dance scene there. There's a big, LA has a lot of everything there. So it was a great experience to live there for the 12 years that I did, to be able to meet all these people and collaborate with them, and to be able to also reach out to them when it was time to record something like this, like the Bones video.
Yeah, I wanted to hit up on that too, is the fact that you have so many collaborations with different artists all over the world. Some of those projects and events have led you to places to even meeting some of your biggest influences as well. So I want to hear maybe a little bit more about your more recent collaborations and anything you'd like to share about that.
Yeah, so my most recent collaborations would be I recently did a release with a DJ from France. His name is Alex M, but he actually lives in Hong Kong. So he's a guy that I met when I moved to Australia. I've been living in Australia for the last 4 years, and I got the opportunity to perform in Indonesia in an island called Bali. And I met this man. He was like a music supervisor and resident DJ for a resort in Bali. His name is Alex M. He's half French, half Vietnamese from Bordeaux, France. So through my whole circle of artists and producers and friends, we got connected. And he started sending me tracks like, hey, man, I would love for you to sing this. I would love to sing this. So most recently, he pitched to me the concept and idea of doing a cover of a famous salsa singer called Hector Lavoe. Hector Lavoe, there was a movie recently that came out with Mark Anthony and J-Lo about Hector Lavoe. So he's an iconic salsa singer from Puerto Rico, from New York, who was part of the whole salsa kind of revolution back in the 60s and 70s. So me being a big fan of Hector Lavoe, I was like, yeah, let's do it. So the song is called Periódico de Ayer, which means yesterday's news or yesterday's newspaper. And so I listened to the original. He sampled some pieces of the original, but because it was a house music reiteration, the song had to be sped up. The song had to be readapted. So he asked me, that was where I come in. So I learned the original version. Then I got the backing track music from him that he produced. And then I recorded my voice as Hector Lavoe. And I put on top of that some more string arrangements and some violin solos and stuff like that. So that was recently released last month. And then the most recent release since then is another collaboration I did with a DJ producer from the Bay Area. His name is Koflo. He's an amazing dancer. This guy's like an incredible house music dancer. He does capoeira, but he's also passionate about music, and he's a very talented music producer. So we have been working together in the last few months, and I had these pre-recorded vocals with this concept of I wanted to send my friends and producers just the vocal parts, and then they could chop them up and remix them and add the music and create their own song with it. So the name of the song is called Cheguei, which is a word in Portuguese which means I have arrived. It's spelled Xeguei, Cheguei. So I sent him the vocal parts, and he created this really cool Afro-Brazilian samba house track behind it. And then I sent the vocal parts also to some friends of mine in Sydney, Australia. There's a band called Oyobi. So they're a band that uses like a lot of Afro-Cuban drumming and percussion with electronic beats and basses and synthesizers, and they create this really cool kind of like funky, housey, disco kind of groovy, dancey stuff. So I sent him the vocals too, and he also did a version of it. And we recently released this song called Cheguei. Just came out a few weeks ago. And so, yeah, those are my latest two collaborations.
Wow, that is, talk about global perspective. You're literally, your voice is reaching all over the world. And that's incredible. So I wanted to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about music and arts and activism.
Okay.
Yes, and about the power of music, and what you're doing here actually is a form of activism. You're bringing awareness to the world through your music, but to motivate music and activism, to motivate people to think and feel, to bring about change. there's a lot of artists in history and today who are using their art, using their creativity as a platform, as a way to do that. Do you consider yourself an activist?
I absolutely consider myself an artist activist.
Yes.
And I believe that it is our responsibility as artists or performers or musicians to bring about social change in the betterment of the collective planet, right? So if I have a platform and I'm able to reach people and influence them, why not help all of us be better, right? Why not use my music to inspire people to be better, better for society, better for this planet, better for your family members and your communities, right? And I think that is it's not only, it's a big responsibility, but if you love it and you enjoy it and you're being rewarded by it, it's empowering for you as an artist or myself as an artist to do that, because I can see firsthand the reaction that people are getting from my music and the motivation or inspiration that they might be getting to then, you know, go out and do what they really love, or go out and put even 110% into whatever job or profession or passion that they want to do. And if you study music history, you will see that music has been at the forefront of all of the social change all over the world. In our country, during the Martin Luther King and the civil rights activism, there were a lot of artists, musical artists like Nina Simone, Harry Belafonte, the list goes on of guys who were there, who were going to the protests, who were singing music, who were creating music for people to rally against, because that is a constructive artistic way to get people activated, right? When we see people upset and mad and frustrating and rioting and destroying stuff, it's because they don't have the proper outlet to express their emotions about what's going on. But when you have a song that can help to illuminate what the future looks like or what the path forward is like,
right,
it helps to get people behind it. It helps to put people in alignment and unify together. You know, I think of Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On," right? That song is iconic. It's still relevant today. You know, I think about one of my biggest influences and musical saviors is Bob Marley. You know, if you study Bob Marley, he single-handedly through his music was able to unify his country of Jamaica. They were on the brink of going to civil war. Okay, they were about that country was about to just erupt into chaos, and they actually called him up. They hit him up and they're like, "Hey, Bob, you know, things are getting really bad here. Can you come and do a show and maybe help, you know, point these people in the right direction so they can, you know, have some kind of solace and some kind of unity into what this was, you know?" And that's what he did. That was his calling. And if you listen to his music now, it's still relevant. It's still activating. It's still powerful and inspiring, you know?
Yeah, thank you for that. You're absolutely right. I was thinking of Kendrick Lamar's "All Right" and how that just became a complete anthem for what is happening right now with police brutality and the Black Lives Matter movement. But I think we have a few questions. So if we can, we're going to show this last video and then we'll take some questions from our students.
Okay.
And last video, you might want to, can you set it up a little bit, Q, with Run Like the Wind?
All right. So this video concept and idea was something that I developed with my cousin, who's a filmmaker. His name is David Tellez. He's been doing music video. He's done videos for Beyonce. He's done videos for all kinds of rappers all over the Bay Area. That's where he's from, San Francisco. He actually he did the Bones video as well, the one that we just watched. And so we wanted to do a video that was going to be like a performance art piece, a video that was standalone, where it was going to be the imagery that was going to capture people's imagination and maybe make them think a little bit differently. Like, we don't want to do the typical like lip singing pop dance video, right, that you always see, which are awesome, they're great, but we wanted to do something that was going to be thought provoking, you know. And right around that time was during the Dakota Access Pipeline, kind of the whole problem that was going on. I don't know if some of you guys know this or not, but in the Native American territories up in North Dakota, there's a tribe called the Lakota. Their traditional burial grounds and ceremonial grounds were being dug up illegally by fossil fuel companies in order to install a pipeline. Now, they were doing this without the permission of these people because they thought that they would have more power, and they didn't care, right? I mean, a lot of you guys know, a lot of these industries, they don't care about the well-being of humanity as a whole. They're perfectly fine with polluting and cutting down and burning and destroying parts of the world just so they can make a buck. And this is happening everywhere. So during that time, there was a big kind of clash between protesters and members of this tribe and these Dakota Access Pipeline fossil fuel industry companies that were coming in. And they brought in the police. The police came not to protect the rights of the indigenous peoples. They came to protect the fossil fuel companies, which were in direct violation of these people's treaties and laws and land, right? So it was this big deal. So we wanted to try to create a video or something that would just kind of put all these things in perspective and maybe raise the question of what it would be. So my cousin was the one who came up with the idea. I was like, yeah, why don't we have a guy who's a Native American running through the streets, you know, and shooting a bow and arrow or maybe da-da-da. Like, so we talked about this concept for months and thought about what we could do with our own resources and to create something that would open up the dialogue for this kind of issue, right? So people could have this talk if they watched it, you know. And I was living in downtown LA at the time. So we came up with the action shot of myself dressed up like an indigenous person, which I happen to have indigenous ancestry. And I've been on a few movie sets where I've done full makeup and wardrobe in the styles of certain indigenous tribes from like the East Coast, for instance, like the Algonquins or the Mohicans, right? So I dressed myself in this regalia, in this this type of paint, body paint, hair, breechcloth, all those things. I got a bow and arrow, and we practiced and coordinated this entire stunt that was to be shot, that we shot in slow motion. We hired police, we hired innocent bystanders, and we coordinated and created this whole conflict between the, like, say if we got an indigenous person from back in the 1400s before Columbus, and we put him in the streets of a place like downtown LA, what would happen? What would his reaction be if he was to see where his ancient homeland and his sacred sites were all buried under the city? He'd probably be devastated, right? He'd probably be wanting to figure out a way to escape and go back to his homeland. So this is the scenario that plays out in this video called Run Like the Wind.
Love it.
In pursuit of suspect.
Sins, just let it out deep from within. Run like the wind and pray your sins. Just let it out deep from within. Just pray your sins 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 deep from within. Run like the wind through an arrow. 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 The arrow spins and hits the heart of lovers past long from the start. The arrow spins and hits the heart of lovers past long from the start. Run, 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 run away. Run, run, run,
1K41 status.
Awesome. What looks like we are almost going to be out of time. I can't believe how
That
fast
went really fast. Wow.
Like honestly, there's going to be some things now we're going to get to. I could have a whole nother discussion on your training in capoeira because all of that is just so interesting. So I do want to say that we're really happy that Q is going to come back and work with our students in the music department. So all of you guys be ready for that. We have a special project that we're going to be doing in some workshops in November and December. So you'll get to meet him in person. Well, this is in person, but right now we're going to go to some questions. So Andre, if you could put some questions down at the bottom. This one says, from Lily, hi Lily, was violin the first instrument you learned or did you learn many instruments at the same time?
Yes, that's a great question, Lily. Violin was my first instrument that I started studying, religiously and daily. So that started around 4, and then around the age of 12, I started learning saxophone and band. I was in the choir, so I started learning singing. I started learning guitar around the age of 12. So around the age of 12 is when I started learning a bunch of different music, a bunch of different instruments. I started experimenting more and figuring out which instruments I also was drawn to aside from just violin.
Great, thank you. Christine says, since you've been around the world and experienced many different cultures, can you speak multiple languages? If not, how did you get through the language barrier?
Yes, I do speak multiple languages. Right now, currently, I speak English, Spanish, Portuguese. When I lived in Japan, because I was so young, I learned Japanese fairly quickly. And I was already speaking fluently and playing with my friends. And because I was going to a Japanese school, I learned really quickly. So unfortunately, I don't remember all of my Japanese anymore because I didn't keep up with it, But I hope to go back to Japan at some point, and maybe, who knows, maybe I'll remember. Right. But yeah, I think that speaking different languages is been an incredible tool for me, being able to travel the world, specifically Spanish. Having the chance to travel through Latin America, all through South and Central America. If you speak Spanish, you can get around. You're good. You can go see so many things, And because my mother is from Brazil, they speak Portuguese there. So she actually raised me speaking Portuguese. And that's another language that is incredibly useful when you're traveling in places like Brazil or Angola or Portugal or Mozambique, And so now I'm really open to wanting to learn more languages. I would love to learn. I'm trying to learn French. I want to learn Arabic. I'm learning Nahuatl, which is the language that the Aztecs spoke and is also one of the most widely spoken indigenous languages in the Americas. So I'm really fascinated by language and the sounds and the phrasings and the way they rhyme, because they make cool songs. If you can find some stuff in languages that sound cool, put that in the song. Then it brings a whole nother vibe,
Great, thank you. Thank you for that question too. Laurel says, what artists do you want to collaborate with, dead or alive?
That's a good question. I'd love to collaborate with Santana. I like Santana a lot. I would love to collaborate with dead or alive, Bob Marley, Jimi Hendrix.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of maybe some younger artists that I would like to collaborate with. I really like this artist from Nigeria. His name is Burna Boy. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. Burna Boy, he's from Nigeria. I would love to collaborate with him. He's on my list. So yeah, the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah, thank you. Jemima says, what was your most favorite travel location and why?
That's a hard question. Most recently, the country that I've been to that really rocked my world and I loved was India. I got to study music in India a couple summers ago, and that was amazing. It was eye-opening. It was beautiful. So India is pretty awesome, but there's awesome places everywhere, guys. Everywhere you go is cool, you know?
You can go in your backyard and find adventure.
Yeah, exactly. You can go hike up the
Yes.
mountain, you know, somewhere. You'll love it.
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Vera says, what was a memorable moment for you during your tour?
Okay, so the most recent tour that I did a tour in Europe last summer. And it was a huge festival on the beach of Italy. And there was about 10,000 people there. It was amazing.
Wow.
If you go on my Instagram, you might be able to find it. There's a video of us playing to like an ocean of people, and then there's the ocean right there. That was probably my most memorable moment in this past year or two.
Excellent. Thank you, Vera. Kathleen says, how do you motivate yourself even in days when it seems difficult? What would your advice be to people who are having difficult time under the circumstances we're in right now? How do you stay motivated?
That's a great question. And I want to say a lot of people bag on social media. They say that it's bad, you know, or whatever, that it's addicting. Yes, it is. I'm addicted, but I'm addicted for reasons that are really cool. I follow all kinds of artists. I follow, you know, dancers. I follow trickers. I follow acrobats. I follow yogis. I follow musicians. I follow athletes. So I purposely like to follow and subscribe to guys who inspire me and who motivate me and go, whoa, that's cool. I want to do something like that. Or I want to do something that I like. What they're doing is inspiring me to want to commit more to what I'm doing, right? Like on my TikTok, for instance, I follow all kinds of cool crafts and arts. And I find that that actually motivates me because I'll see somebody play something or I'll see somebody dance. And I'm like, wow, they're really working hard to show how awesome they are. Maybe I need to work a little harder, you know, or maybe I need to try something different. So that's one of the tools that I use.
That's an excellent question, Kathleen. Thank you. Jacob says, who was the first artist you listened to? Who was the first artist you listened to?
The first artist that I listened to that I can remember is probably Mozart. Because when you're learning Suzuki, the first songs that you learn is Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. That's Mr. Mozart right there. So that's the earliest artist that I can remember. And, you know, it made a huge impact in my life. And his music has made a huge impact on the planet. So Mozart.
Gwyneth says, how much did you practice when you were in high school and middle school? These, by the way, I want to say thank you to my students because I did send out and said, hey, come on in and get those questions ready. So this is great. Gwyneth wants to know, how much did you practice?
Okay, so this is like a multi-tiered answer, okay?
Oh, yeah, we need Cliff Notes.
Okay, so I practiced all the time when I was young, when I was coming up, when I was from 4 to the time I was 12, I was practicing all the time. But then junior high school came around. I got friends. They want to go break dance. They want to go over here. And I didn't want to practice no more. I wanted to go have fun with my friends. But thankfully, by the time I was in junior high school, I was doing performances. I was playing at the school dance, for instance. We would do performances for other schools. So that kept me engaged and it kept me playing, or at least being like, oh, I got a show tomorrow, or I want to learn this song so I could play it for my friends. So I didn't practice as dedicated to specifically classical music when I was, you know, in junior high school and high school, but I was playing guitar, I was singing, I was playing congas, I was playing and jamming with other musicians. So I wasn't as dedicated to one specific instrument, but by that point, music had become part of my world. It became part of my environment. And I think you have to do that when you get to the age as a teenager. Your surroundings and your environment is going to influence you, right? If you're with all your friends and they want to do something outside of what you want to do, you're probably not going to get to do what you really trying to do because you want to hang out with your friends and you want to fit in and you want to have fun, right? So my advice to somebody who's having a hard time practicing right now, get a practice buddy. If it's online, even better. hey, go hit your boy up on Zoom, or your homegirl, be like, look what I just learned. Do. Oh, cool. This is what I'm learning. Cool. Maybe you could try this. Maybe you could try that. So you have to socialize your practice. You have to turn it into a community so that you can hold each other accountable, or you can inspire each other, right? So I was always practicing. I was kind of all over the place when I was in high school and junior high, but music was always there.
Wonderful. Hey, we're almost going to be out of time, but I know there's other questions. Are we allowed, if we're allowed to go over, that would be nice, because
Sure,
we wanted to hear a little bit from Q as well. We've been watching his videos and everything, but we would love to hear him play something live. But let's go ahead and take a couple more questions. And hello to everybody. Thank you for all being here. Isabella says, how do you know what instrument to practice and spend your time on when you play so many? I'd imagine it'd be hard to balance at times.
It is hard to balance at times, yes. And the way I treat it now is that as soon as I feel inspired or motivated to play something, I go for it. Because if I wait and I'm like, maybe I should wait till later, or if I even like doubt myself at all, I'll end up doing something else, right? It helps that right now during quarantine, I'm getting a lot of practice in. I've been teaching myself piano. It's been great. I've been practicing all the time because I ain't got nothing else to do, right? So I'm really taking advantage of this quarantine to try to practice new instruments and learn new instruments. And then when I feel, inclined, or if I have to do a performance, that's an additional motivation to want to practice, right? For you guys who are in school, if you got a quiz coming up, or a test, or a song you really want to learn, that's also an incentive to want to learn something. But you should always practice what you're having fun with. Switch it up for yourself. Try to learn what I've learned about practicing different instruments is that they cross over, right? By practicing piano, it's helped me more with how I play violin. I didn't even realize that. By practicing guitar, it's helped me more with playing percussion. Why is that? Because I'm still studying rhythm. I'm still studying chord structure. I'm still studying harmony. I'm still studying melody. So all of these instruments start to overlap because they're all part of the language of music. So by studying different instruments, it's going to make your abilities and your vocabulary in music expand, right? So as long as you're studying music and you're doing your due diligence to keep learning, you're going to keep getting better, right? Maybe you're not going to get better at that one specific instrument because you got to sit there and practice your scales all day, but you're still getting a relationship and awareness of how those sounds, those harmonies and those melodies and those rhythms all play together and work together. So just keep it going. That's it.
Yeah. That's great. That's great advice. We'll take, there we go. Ichiro says, and Ichiro plays the saxophone and the piano. Speaking of playing multiple instruments, when I become older, I want to travel the world, whether it being from music or sports. Do you have any advice for the next generation of musicians?
Yes, my advice for anybody trying to succeed with any vocation, whether it be music or visual arts or dance or sports or technology, what you put in is what you get out. And that's as simple as that. What I mean by that is that if you work hard at something, things will come for you. People will recognize the dedication that you put into your craft. So that applies for anything, right? The harder I practice something and the more dedicated I am to it, guess what? When I go to perform or when I go to do a TikTok video, it shows. You can see like, damn, that guy's really putting in work to do his thing. I'm gonna like that. I'm gonna share that. Or guess what? When you dedicate yourself to something and you become really good at it, people will notice. People will give you love. It'll open up opportunities for you to either travel, to make money, to meet people, to collaborate. So dedication. That is the secret ingredient for success.
Absolutely. I believe at this point, they threw another one up there. I'm sorry. One more. Okay, I do want to say this though, with all the students that are asking all these questions, and we see there's other great questions. We come to our workshop, be a part of our workshop where you'll get to know Q even more and be able to speak with him, interact, and learn from him on your instrument. So we'll discuss that in class. But thank you for these questions. This is our last one we're gonna put here. From AM, what was the biggest accomplishment as an artist, musician that you've done, and how did that impact or change you?
Ooh,
Oh, that's a deep
that's a
one.
crazy question.
Yes, it is.
What was the biggest accomplishment?
Mhm.
I would have to say for me, the biggest accomplishment for me as an artist musician was when I recorded and produced my very first album, right? Because a lot of people don't recognize and realize how much work it actually is to create an album, a full body of work. And when I talk
Yes.
about album, I'm talking about songs, and you have to mix it, and then you have to master it, and then you got to get the album artwork, and then you got to register it online to like publishing and writing certifications. And so when I was able to do that the very first time, it was like, wow, I really felt a huge sense of accomplishment, and I felt like I would learn so much from that first experience that every album after that was not only was it easier, but it was more concise. It was more precise. It was better quality. I was able to keep building from that. So, yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, that's about all the time we have right now. We are going to actually leave you with a live performance from Q. And I just want to say it's been great getting to know you and hearing your story and your journey and your passion. It's an inspiration. You are an inspiration.
Thank you.
And I know we just met each other, but I'm proud of you.
Thank you so much.
I've known you.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I'm proud of you, proud to know you, and happy that we're about to embark on this journey with the students. So we're very lucky, and thank you for that. And what are you going to play for us?
You know what? I didn't even think about what I was going to play for you guys yet. So
perfect. That's exactly how I was hoping it
I'm just going to play whatever I'm feeling right now. This is my acoustic classical violin, but it has a little pickup on it too, as you can see.
Yes.
But this is what I use to practice mostly on, and when I do acoustic performances on. So, all right, are we ready? We're gonna do this one. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm gonna jam on something. We'll see what comes out. Riding on into the storm, I'd everything to live for. On and on until the dawn, I really couldn't give more. And then I see it's driving me to the ends of the earth, don't know why. Could it be it's calling me to the radio? You really can't save me no more, 'cause I'm right back. Won't stop when I get to the shore. I won't look back. No, I ain't looking back. Lost again beneath the sand. No heart is to see clearly. Failing me, I kill my fear to find what I hold dearly. And then I see it's driving me to
Staring back from afar, something instead. It speaks to me so gently, never stray away. You really can't save me no more. I'll buy back, yeah. Won't stop when I get to the shore. I won't look back. No, I ain't looking back. No, I ain't looking back.